First, we see the preparation position, right? This is pretty traditional, and normally what we see from players, right? We tend to see the left hand up on the throat of the racket right here. Pretty normal, pretty traditional. We want to get that unit turn and have the left hand up here, right, supporting the throat of the racket as we go through the unit turn. So as you're turning your body, you just want to have that left hand on there. Basically, every player in the world does that for the most part, especially on the ATP side. So as he comes through here and gets his unit turn now, you can see he's really starting to load and coil his body, right? That's pretty typical when we're trying to load up and hit the ball. What he does differently than other players, and we'll just kind of get into the first thing here, is look at the elbow position, right? With a lot of the younger players, their hitting elbow tends to be up by their hitting shoulder. And what that does, if we just go back for 1 second here, is it'll cause the racket to severely tilt during your take back. The racket will be tilted like this. The higher your elbow goes, the more your racket head will be pointed forward. The problem is that's not essential for generating power to have your racket completely tilted forward like this. So Sinner has a little bit of tilt here in the back of his swing. You can see that tilt right there. But because his elbow doesn't lift up way up here, he doesn't have the excessive tilt of someone like a Nick Kyrgios. And for somebody like Kyrgios, when fastballs come in, he has a lot of trouble against pace because of that high elbow position and that severe tilt. It's something that I actually talked about in 2020 with another high-level player, a Division I college tennis player who had a really high tilt, and I was doing some match analysis and talking about how that was a problem on faster balls. At higher levels, having that severe tilt will definitely cause you problems in certain situations. He keeps the elbow down, which is good, minimizes the amount of tilt that he has there, right, with the racket forward. It's not severe because that elbow is not coming up too high, but this is really what separates him from a lot of the players on tour. Look at this position right here. So what do we see, right? We see the racket in this position and the racket strings are pointed to the back fence. Now, some people might say, well, Jason, that's because of his grip. And we'll get into the grip in a second, and part of that is the grip. But part of that is that he's really loading up and turning the hand, and he's going to uncoil and whip that racket into the ball along with his legs and his hips and his torso. But he's going to have a gigantic flip on his forehand that's going to give him a lot of pace. So let's look at that big flip right here. So look where the racket is, right? What do we see? The tip of his fingers on his left hand are almost lined up with his racket during the takeback. That's how big this flip's going to be. So as we come from here, keep your eye on that. We're going frame by frame, but this is the position that I'm talking about right here. So what do we see with him? We see the tip of his racket head is behind his own elbow. And that is a huge flip. So from where the racket came from, right? Remember, it came from here, all the way from here, all the way to here in a very, very short period of time. That maximizes his racket head speed. And with as slight as he is, it makes sure that he can hit a gigantic forehand. So let's just go back for a second again, right here. Look where the racket comes from. If we watch it in real time, watch quickly here. Look at that, how quick that happens, okay? So again, from here in real time, that gigantic move happens, you know, in a fraction of a second. And that's part of what gives him so much racket head speed, okay, as slight as he is. So let's go back for 1 second. One other thing I want to talk about here real quick is his grip. So if we just look at his index knuckle position on his hitting hand, right, which is the right hand for him for a righty, that's on the fourth bevel of the racket when he's gripping the racket, okay? And his heel pad of his hand, you can't see that from here, but it's also probably lined up on the fourth bevel. So it's a very strong semi-Western grip. He's on that fourth bevel, almost on the fifth bevel, but solidly on the fourth one. If he was to be on the fifth one, he'd be in a jack sock position. He'd be in a full Western grip. He's not there, but he's in a very strong semi-Western grip, and that's something we're seeing with a lot of the younger players. So if we just go back for a second and you talk about this position right here, right? Part of the reason he's getting this extreme position right here is because he has that grip, that base knuckle on the fourth bevel of the racket. That's part of the reason, but it's not the only reason the racket is going back there, and we'll show and talk about something in a little bit. But again, look at the gigantic here flip position, solid semi-Western grip, and again, look at the tip of the racket. The tip of the racket gets behind the elbow, okay? Humongous move. So if you want a bigger forehand, keep your hand and arm relaxed as you go through this, rotate your body, concentrate on getting your contact out in front, and get that tip of the racket to flip behind your elbow by staying relaxed, okay, and generating a ton of racket head speed. From here, he does what's pretty traditional, especially in a low ball. So here's something that you can pick up too if you're struggling with topspin. The tip of your racket head here should be below your hitting hand at contact with the ball, okay? And if it's not, if it's even or it's above, you're gonna hit flatter balls, you're gonna struggle to generate topspin. So again, make sure when you're contacting these balls, the tip of your racket head is below your hand. It's really excessive for him, so it's really low below the hitting hand because it's such a low ball and he needs to really hit up, so keep that in mind as well. And then there's the follow through, right? And something we can see on the follow through position, this is something I want you to pay attention to. His racket head here will point towards his opponent as he finishes the shot. It'll be pointing towards his opponent or towards the net like that as he follows through and finishes. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other technical things that are going on within this stroke, but I really wanted to point out what separates him power-wise from a lot of the other younger players on tour, and it's really this gigantic flip of the racket in a very short period of time that allows him to hit the ball so hard.